Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Ukraine has agreed to a 20-day ceasefire, so will Putin agree as well? And even though the tariff war continues, did you know 99% of Canadian goods are duty-free? Okay, let's get into it. On Tuesday, senior U.S. and Ukrainian officials held key talks in Saudi Arabia. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz represented the United States at the Jeddah talks, while the Ukrainian foreign minister, the Ukrainian presidential aide, and the Ukrainian defense minister represented Ukraine. After more than 8 hours of talks, the two sides issued a joint statement. It stated that Ukraine had agreed to a 30-day ceasefire with Russia. So the U.S. will immediately resume intelligence sharing and security assistance with Ukraine. Rubio said in a statement, "Today we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations." The statement also said that Ukraine expressed readiness to accept the U.S. proposal to enact an immediate interim 30-day ceasefire, which can be extended by mutual agreement of the parties. The ceasefire is subject to acceptance and concurrent implementation of the Russian Federation. Rubio said, "We'll take this offer now to the Russians, and we hope they'll say yes to peace. The ball is now in their court." National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said he would now speak to Russia about the proposal. During the talk, the Ukrainian delegation reiterated the gratitude of the Ukrainian people to President Trump, to the United States Congress, and to the American people for making possible meaningful progress toward peace. But prior to the meeting, Ukraine launched its biggest direct attack on Moscow overnight, with hundreds of drones slamming into the capital and other areas, leaving 3 people dead. Ukraine said the largest drone attack in history was intended to push Putin to agree to the aerial and naval ceasefire. As the Ukrainian president's chief of staff told reporters as he entered the meeting, he said, "We are ready to do everything to achieve peace." President Trump hailed the Ukrainians' agreement to ceasefire. President Trump said, "Now we have to go to Russia. Hopefully President Putin will agree to that also." President Trump also said that he would take this matter forward personally. He said, "I'll talk to Vladimir Putin. It takes 2 to tango, as they say. I think the ceasefire is very important. If we can get Russia to do it, that'll be great. If we can't, we just keep on going and people are going to get killed, lots of people." He told reporters that Zelensky would be invited back to the White House in the future as well. Ukrainian President Zelensky thanked President Trump for Tuesday's constructive U.S.-Ukrainian talks in Saudi Arabia. He said, "Ukraine is ready to accept this proposal. We see it as a positive step and are ready to take it. Now it's up to the United States to convince Russia to do the same. If Russia agrees, the ceasefire will take effect immediately." The Russian Foreign Ministry said that contacts with the U.S. will be made in the coming days. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called the progress warmly welcomed, and he urged Russia to sign on to the proposed ceasefire deal. Then the Kremlin said on Wednesday that it is waiting for further details from Washington about the proposed 30-day ceasefire in Ukraine before responding. Rubio hopes a deal will be struck within days. The U.S. Department of Education, the DOE, announced that 1,315 employees will be laid off within 90 days. A senior official told reporters that the cuts were made to address redundancies in communications, human resources, information technology, and other offices within the department. On Tuesday, a memo was sent to all Department of Education employees informing them that the DOE offices would be closed on Tuesday night through Wednesday for security reasons. Those laid off were notified via email on Tuesday. They will receive full pay and benefits until June 9th, as well as severance pay or retirement benefits. And Department of Education offices outside of Washington, including New York, Boston, Dallas, Chicago, and San Francisco, will be closed. The senior official said that the layoffs would not affect any of the department's services, including the college financial aid, loan, and grant functions. This comes a day after Secretary of Education Linda McMahon sent letters to 60 schools asking them to fulfill their obligation to protect Jewish students on their campuses. The letter warned them of potential enforcement action if they failed to protect the rights of Jewish students under Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. The list contains 6 of 8 Ivy League schools, including Columbia University and Harvard University. Since February, the U.S. plan to impose tariffs on Canada has had several twists and turns, during which new tariffs have been introduced and postponed. The Canadian government has also introduced countermeasures. Especially in the last few days, the tariff policy and implementation schedule has been adjusted in a dazzling manner. On Monday, President Trump vowed to respond by doubling import tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum from 25% to 50% in response to the announcement by Ontario, Canada, that it would impose a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the United States. But then on Tuesday, Ontario Premier Doug Ford said that the surcharge was suspended after a productive conversation with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. President Trump also later said that he would drop Wednesday's move to double tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum to 50%. News Nation Chris Cuomo had invited Canadian ambassador to the U.S. Kirsten Hillman to discuss tariffs on his show.
So the first fact is, between Canada and the United States, under the USMCA, the deal that we negotiated under President Trump in his first term, Canada and the United States are 99% tariff-free. 99% of the tariffs are at zero. There are some sectors, in agriculture in particular, where both countries only allow a certain amount of product in. And then once that amount is reached, we put tariffs in place or other restrictions in order to make sure that our small family farms can have a share of the market. The United States does it in sugar, you do it in dairy, you do it in fruit, you do it in veg. We do it in dairy as well. And that's what those tariffs are.
Hillman said on Monday that 99% of the products that are traded between the two countries are still tariff-free, despite the current escalation of tariff tensions between the two countries.
Last year, the U.S. sold 3 times as much dairy product to Canada as we sold to the United States. We're your number 2 customer. So we need to be honest about what's actually happening here. It is a deal. We struck that deal. Part of that deal was that both sides would be allowed to keep a certain limited number of restrictions in place for certain sectors where we had policies to protect, as I say, in this case, small family farms.
And Hillman defended Canada's position. She said that Canada's tariff in the agricultural sector are specifically designed to protect small family farms.
And can I just say one other thing? And the president is very keen on fairness. And I understand that. It's important for the American people. But here's something I'd like to point out. Canada is your number 1 customer. And you have a trade surplus with Canada in all things.
Go ahead, Ambassador.
In all manufactured goods. In energy, we sell you more energy because it's a discounted rate, because it keeps your price of gas at the pump down, because it fuels your industry, and because your refineries take our raw product, refine it, and sell it for 3 times the price to other countries. So on the one hand, we buy more goods from you than you buy from us, and more than any other country on the planet. And on the other side, we provide affordable, reliable energy that helps fuel the U.S. economy. To me, this seems like a pretty fair relationship. If there are things that need to be discussed, let's talk about it. But let's talk about it based on the facts, based on what's really happening in this relationship.
And she emphasized that Canada is the number 1 customer of the United States. In addition to the influx of illegal immigrants, the reason that President Trump imposed tariffs on Canada and Mexico was actually the lack of regulation of fentanyl in those two countries. But the source of the fentanyl problem is really the Chinese Communist Party. And China also has a huge trade deficit with the United States. So why doesn't the U.S. discuss this issue with the CCP? The United States has actually been negotiating with China on trade, drugs, and other issues, but it has been stuck in lower-level communication. Beijing argued that the U.S. had not made it clear what specific actions the CCP would have to take on fentanyl in order to get the U.S. to rescind the tariffs. At the time, President Trump had not yet announced a second round of tariffs on China. Then, by the time President Trump announced the second round of tariffs on March 4th, the officials involved in the negotiations between the two countries were caught off guard. However, President Trump's team denied that the U.S. side had not made a clear request. They said that the White House had conveyed the message to Beijing through diplomats in the U.S., including the CCP's ambassador to the U.S. The U.S. demand included that the CCP must stop shipping to Mexico the chemical raw materials to manufacture fentanyl, and they suggested to even sentence to death the smugglers, as the CCP had threatened before. And America demanded that the CCP officials' mouthpiece media, the People's Daily, publish a front-page article denouncing the proliferation of fentanyl. However, the front page of the People's Daily is usually devoted to news related to the CCP chairman Xi Jinping. Claiming that the U.S. has not made its demands clear is most likely an excuse by the CCP. When President Trump first started a trade war with the CCP in 2018, the CCP was using stall tactics all the way to the 2020 election. But President Trump has experience now in dealing with the CCP. He has increased the tariff rate at a certain point in time, and that's what puts pressure on the CCP officials. While there is talk of a White House meeting between U.S. and CCP heads, there are no plans to schedule a meeting between the two leaders. Mao Ning, a spokeswoman for the Communist Party's foreign ministry, also said at a press conference yesterday that Beijing had no information about a possible meeting between Xi Jinping and President Trump. Even so, the CCP leader does want to communicate with President Trump very much. But last week's clash between Zelensky and the Trump team was broadcast live in front of the whole world, which puts the CCP leaders under great pressure. Officials of the CCP usually speak from a script. They don't have their own independent thoughts at all. In addition, the CCP officials are worried that they will be penalized if they say something wrong, so in public they just keep repeating the same rehearsed word salad. But Xi Jinping does certainly have his own ideas. However, he can adapt to a tit-for-tat debate with the Trump team. This is because the mutual support and defense of the Trump team will make it difficult for Xi Jinping to find a way to distance President Trump's team members from President Trump. Also, when dealing with the West, the CCP will make promises in a private setting, but completely ignore them when it comes to actual implementation. But if the private promises are publicized, then the whole world, especially the Chinese people, will know that the CCP is not true to its word. And this is an outcome that the CCP cannot afford. However, CCP officials are more interested in establishing a U.S.-China docking channel that is mainly represented by the CCP Foreign Minister Wang Yi and by U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. But no official from the Trump administration approached Wang when he traveled to New York for a UN meeting in February. This was very frustrating to the CCP. So at a press conference last week, Wang Yi directly accused the U.S. tariff policy of being evil. And he criticized Trump's two-faced approach for failing to build mutual trust. However, such a strategy may not work in this case. President Trump is using tariffs to force every country to collect tariffs from China. And if Russia and Ukraine cease fighting, then Putin will also distance himself from Beijing, and the longer the delay, the more fully President Trump's plan will be implemented, and eventually the CCP will be left with no cards to play. Greenland's much-anticipated parliamentary elections have given the pro-business opposition Democratic a clear lead after the majority of votes were counted. The 6 parties that participated in the election all supported independence from Denmark, but their views differ on how and when it should be achieved. Democratic advocated gradual independence from Denmark. It won 30.4% of the vote, which was a significant increase from 9.1% in 2021. Nelarak, which supports a faster pace of independence, won 24.5% of the vote. The incumbent ruling IA party received 21.4%, and its coalition partner received 14.7% of the vote. Prior to the election, it was widely predicted that the IA party would win the election, followed by its coalition partner. This is because both parties have dominated Greenland politics in recent years, but with no party securing an absolute majority, negotiations will be needed in the coming days to form a coalition government. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you. But please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that some of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.